This is the title page of the 1926 novel The Blue Castle by L.M. Montgomery. It introduces us to Valancy Stirling, a 29-year-old woman living in rural Canada during the 1920s. Valancy's daily life is an exercise in endurance. She lives with an overbearing mother and a sprawling, judgmental extended clan. At family gatherings, her uncles and aunts relentlessly mock her unmarried status, treating her as a pathetic failure who simply couldn't secure a husband. To survive the constant humiliation, she retreats into her own mind. Valancy spends her time dissociating into elaborate daydreams, imagining a gorgeous, isolated sanctuary she calls her Blue Castle, complete with romantic lovers and a life of autonomy. Her reality is dictated entirely by a paralyzing terror of what her relatives think. She conforms to every rule and swallows every insult, existing in a state of perpetual submission that resembles a living death. Recently, Valancy has been waking up with terrifying chest pains and shortness of breath, but she keeps this entirely to herself, dreading the dramatic fuss and endless interrogations her mother and cousins would subject her to if they knew. Instead, she does something completely out of character. She sneaks out to a local heart specialist named Dr. Trent, bypassing the family's approved doctor and breaking strict clan protocol for the first time in her life. The appointment is cut short by an emergency, forcing Dr. Trent to mail her his diagnosis. When she opens the letter, she reads her diagnosis: late-stage angina pectoris. The condition is fatal. She has roughly 1 year to live. She spends a long, dark night confronting her own mortality, but by sunrise, the sheer panic of the diagnosis dissolves into a strange sense of relief. Receiving a literal expiration date removes the only leverage her family has. With only months left to live, social suicide carries no long-term consequences. The very next morning, Valancy stops performing. She talks back to her mother, demands to be called by her actual name, rearranges the furniture in her drab bedroom, and flatly refuses to attend the mandatory family picnic. Then she commits social suicide. She packs her bags and moves to the outskirts of town to live with a notorious local drunk known as Roaring Abel, taking a job to care for his terminally ill daughter. The Stirling family clan descends into chaos. They dispatch her wealthiest uncle to threaten her, and later the family's intimidating minister to demand her return, wielding their traditional weapons of shame and spiritual guilt. Valancy simply watches them perform these power grabs and laughs. You cannot control someone by threatening to ruin their future when they already know they don't have one. While living at Abel's, Valancy crosses paths with Barney Snaith. He's a mysterious local outcast, rumored to be an escaped convict, living deep in the woods. Despite the gossip, the two form an immediate, quiet connection. After Abel's daughter passes away, Valancy makes an incredibly bold move. She tracks Barney down, hands him the doctor's letter, and proposes marriage. She explains that her time is quickly running out, and she just wants to spend her final days experiencing life. Barney accepts the proposal. They leave town immediately and move into his home, a rustic wooden cabin on an island in an isolated pine forest. Settling into this quiet, beautiful space, Valancy looks out over the lake and the trees. She realizes that this physical cabin matches the exact feeling of the imaginary blue sanctuary she had pictured since childhood. By accepting her impending death, she discarded the rigid rules of her society. That singular act of letting go allowed her to walk directly into the life she had spent 29 years dreaming about. A full, blissful year passes on the island. Valancy and Barney build a deep, genuine partnership. And during that entire time, Valancy realizes she hasn't experienced a single chest pain. Then, while walking home one day, her boot gets wedged in a set of train tracks. She spends 30 agonizing seconds trying to wrench her foot free as a massive locomotive bears down on her, escaping just before it rips past. Sitting in the dirt, the medical reality of the situation hits her. A person with fatal angina pectoris should have suffered an instant, lethal heart attack from that massive spike of adrenaline. She marches straight into Dr. Trent's office and confronts him with the letter. The doctor reads his own typed words, stares at her in complete bewilderment, and then slowly realizes the catastrophic mistake he made a year ago. Dr. Trent had written 2 letters that day. Distracted by a family emergency, he slid Valancy's actual diagnosis, a minor harmless case of pseudoangina, into another patient's envelope. Valancy is, and always has been, perfectly healthy. She walks out of the office with a clean bill of health, but her marriage to Barney was built on the condition of her death. Now, the terrifying prospect of a long life ahead feels like a reason he might deeply resent her for staying. Valancy is completely devastated. She is utterly convinced that Barney only agreed to her proposal out of pity, humoring a sick woman in her final days. Unwilling to trap him in a fraudulent marriage, she makes a quiet, agonizing decision. While he is out, she packs her few belongings and walks away from the cabin to set him free. She returns to the very place she fought so hard to escape. She walks through her mother's front door to find the exact same grim atmosphere, greeted by the cold, stony silence of a family that views her as a disgraced outcast. She sits in her old childhood room, stripped of all hope. Death had once offered her an escape, but now she faces decades of living in this cage, fully aware of the brilliant freedom she has lost. But before the dust can settle on her old life, the front door flies open. Barney bursts into the oppressive Stirling sitting room, demanding to know why she left. Valancy confesses the medical error, expecting his anger. Instead, Barney tells her the truth. He never pitied her. He married her because he admired her courage, and he is deeply, genuinely in love with her. As the Stirling family tries to intervene, they are hit with one final bombshell. The rugged, unkempt town outcast they spent a year despising is actually the son of a multimillionaire and a highly successful author in his own right. Barney takes Valancy by the hand and pulls her right back out the front door. The family is left sitting in their parlor, completely stunned and utterly powerless to stop them from leaving. Valancy's final escape from the Stirling house was the result of a year spent ignoring external expectations and defining her own worth outside of her family's approval.